Now, at the beginning of 2020, Insta360 actually came out with this one, which is the Insta360 One R, which is a modular camera system. So you're able to hook up either a regular 4K camera, or here they have the 360 mod, and they also have a 1-inch sensor mod for the Insta360 One R. And in my Insta360 One R videos, I did mention that even though the concept was really, really good, I still like the concept how it is all modular. When it came down to Insta360 and their cameras, I was still the biggest fan of this one right here, which is the Insta360 One X. So when I heard that Insta360 was coming out with a version 2, I was super excited because, like I said, I've actually gone through all of the 360 cameras from Insta360. I started out with this one. I bought this one a while back, which is the very first one, the Insta360 One. And then we also had the Go, which is that little small one, Insta360 Go. And of course we have this one here, like I just talked about, the Insta360 One R. How big of an upgrade is it from the original 360 One X? And also, what are some of my favorite features after using this for the past couple weeks? Let's get into it in this video. And if you guys are new to my channel, my name is Aldrin Anastacio. I do a lot of drone tech tips, tutorials, and product reviews right here on this channel. So if that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing and also hitting that bell to be notified when I post new videos. Now, when 360 cameras did come out a few years ago, as far as it being this compact, the hard thing with these cameras is that you always have to do a lot of work in post-production. And I think Insta360 initially was one of the companies that was really at the forefront of having the software Insta360 Studio that was actually really, really good. Now, the X2 still does have the 5.7 resolution just like the One X, but also has a nice bigger build quality than the original. Also, this new LCD screen here is super bright. That's something that they did not have on their previous models. And I think this is a big change when you're starting to compose your shots. Also, right here on the very top, we have the microphones. There's actually 4 microphones now, and also a better grip system, a little rubberized grip all the way around the camera. We now have a 1650 milliamp battery, and the one big change here, it is fully waterproof up to 12 meters. Now, I think one of the main reasons why I liked the One X so much was because it was so slim like this. You can easily fit this in your pocket. And not even that, but the stitch was a lot easier to do because of the fact the cameras were a lot closer. When you compare that to something like the One R, the camera is a lot further apart. So if you wanted to have a really good stitch, you have to actually be away from the camera a lot more. And this is a big upgrade here. As you can see here on the original One X, we just have a black and white screen. Now we have a full LCD monitor right here to see and actually move your picture around if you wanted to, compose your shot depending on which camera lens you're going to be using. But you actually can see everything. So comparing those two, that was actually a pretty big deal. And with the X2 compared to the One X, we now moved over to USB-C charging as well as transferring compared to the micro USB that we had on the original One X. Now, when you first get your One X2, it does come with the basic accessories, of course. So with the camera, the battery, you're going to need to provide your own SD card. It comes with this little sleeve right here, which is really nice to protect that lens while in transit. Now, you do have a bunch of other accessories here. We have a lens cap, and I like this one because it just covers the camera itself. You're still able to get to the screen, the battery port, the battery right here, and all the other ports here on the sides. Now, for those that haven't shot 360, definitely the benefit of 360 cameras is that it's always shooting everything at all times. Now, the only drawback of 360 is really the additional time you're going to need to take to bring this either into the phone app or into the desktop app to take those specific angles and those specific clips out and then re-export that back out into something like Adobe Premiere, Final Cut, or whatever your editing software is. So if you're okay with doing that little extra post-production, having a 360 camera is definitely worth it, especially if you're doing anything in the action sports field, mainly because you're now able to shoot and capture everything, and then you can now go back in later, recompose the video to capture that specific shot, zoom in, zoom out, and you never miss pretty much anything. So anything that deals with action sports, I would normally always recommend probably getting one because you're always able to pull out some of those unique angle clips that you're not really able to get with something like a GoPro or Osmo Action because of that narrow field of view. Now, do I see an Insta360 One X replacing the action camera? I say no, not yet, and mainly because of the fact of the lens and the cameras on the 360 camera in general. Now, even though this thing is waterproof now and it pretty much is very rugged and durable, it actually has a very similar build quality to something like the Osmo Action. The one thing you have to always be very careful about is the lens. So On something like an action camera, you could pretty much beat this up, throw it on the ground, and you don't really worry about it because you have this lens covering. But here you have the lens exposed. So no matter how much you want to use this as an action camera, you are now exposing the lens, which really makes it pretty vulnerable to getting scratched up and beat up, where here you can actually have this lens cover removal, swap it out, but you're not actually damaging the lens on the camera, where here you would be damaging that lens. Now the flow state stabilization on this camera, as well as all of the previous ones, have always been top notch. If you do switch that on in the Studio app or on your phone, it feels like you're running or using this thing with a gimbal. Now when the One X first came out, I know myself as well as everyone else really wanted this thing to be waterproof or weatherproof at least. Now it definitely can take a beating, but it wasn't waterproof, and that was one of the drawbacks because of the fact that if you wanted to use this in the snow or in the rain, like you would be doing with an action camera, you weren't really able to do that with the One X. Now you're able to take the X2 into the water up to 12 meters. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I think a lot of people were waiting for as far as upgrading this camera goes, was this thing to be waterproof, and now it is. Now what they did here on the X2 is what they have on the Osmo Action, and that is a dual lock and a spring. So right here on the very side, battery actually will pop out just like that. Very similar to how the Osmo Action does with their batteries. Another one of my favorite features is this screen. Now this actually doesn't do much justice seeing it here on camera, but looking at it in person, it is super bright. They told me it's about 750 nits brightness, but comparing that to a black and white screen that we had on the One X, and it's even a lot more responsive, and the touch is a lot better, even better than the One R screen. So I really like the menu system on here. It does feel pretty fluid. Once I go through it, everything does feel pretty intuitive. There were some suggestions that I did give to Insta360 about how they need to change or possibly can change some of their settings and icons on here. And when it comes to audio enhancements, we do have 4 microphones. We have one right below the lens on both sides right here, as well as at the very top. Now you aren't able to change the direction of the mic like you are on some of the other cameras, where you might be able to say, hey, I only want the audio coming from either the front or the back or all of them. So you're not able to do that yet. I'm not sure if they're gonna be adding that as an update in the future. Right now it does record on all 4 mics. But this is HDR mode. And as you can see here, I'm gonna have really good lighting this way, of course. But when I turn all the way around, it will then kind of blow out the background, which is okay. But I still have some detail in the clouds right here. I can actually still see my face in this monitor. So HDR mode looks pretty good on this camera. Now Shot Labs is an AI powered type of theme that you're able to apply depending on what type of shot you took. Now they have a bunch in here, everything from stop motion, parallel world, split jump, remove passerby, shadow, clone, overtaking game, which is kind of like that 360 world. You also have Flip My Day, Face Off, stop motion, as well as clone trail. So they have a bunch of creative ways to use it. I don't use too much of these types of shots in here, but there are definitely some ways just to get some unique types of exports out of the footage you might have already taken. I think Insta360 definitely is one, if not the leader in that 360 space. I think their software really does make this thing excel, and I've talked about it plenty times in the past with the Insta360 One X, the very first model. I think this is what really sold me on it. The enhanced flow state stabilization, better audio. So definitely all the things that everyone kind of complained about with the One X is now been fixed on here. There was a couple of times where it did freeze up on me. So Nothing new there. A lot of times these, you just get the early production units and the firmware is not, solid yet. Those are easy things that they will normally always continuously fix. But I had to do that pretty standard. It froze up and I had to pop the battery out and put it back in, and then all of a sudden it worked fine right after that. So a couple bugs here and there, but pretty standard as far as what to expect when you have some of these early units. Definitely things I think that they'll be able to easily fix once they do some updates. And that's about it, guys. That's the Insta360 One X. If you guys haven't seen my videos on this camera right here, which is the Insta360 One R, make sure you guys check that out. I'll leave the links above as well as down below. And also, if you wanted to see my video on the previous one, all the things I talked about in this video, I did talk about in this video as well, as far as some of the things I really wish they improved on, which is pretty much this right here. So if you guys want to watch that, links are above as well as down below in the video description. Make sure you guys also check out some of the ongoing discounts I have with a bunch of sponsors for the channel. Things from music to YouTube analytics with TubeBuddy. Also, if you wanted things like Skillshare and learn a new skill on the side, make sure you check out Skillshare, and also some drone cases from GPC as well as other discounts I have. All that will be listed down below in the video description. As always, if you guys got value from this video, don't forget to hit that like button, and also don't forget to subscribe. Hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos. This is Ultra Stock Steel with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys next one.